the first question was on my list, so we've covered quite a bit. Oh, that's on my list already, which is great, and I'm just keeping an eye on my list to make sure we cover everything that I've got here. So one of the first question I was going to be, what are the most common mistakes, and what sort of one or two things to do that really helps?
Okay. Don't overcomplicate your CV is one of my, I suppose, top tips. There's a lot of tools now like Canva and tools like that, which will create a CV and it'll be really nice looking. And don't get me wrong, those CVs have a place in the world, you know, for designers or anybody who wants to kind of like really show off, you know, that sort of thing. So fashion,
Creative, side
yeah.
of it, yeah.
Whereas if if we just kind of look at your corporate positions or something like that, I would just really stay away from that and focus more on the content of the CV. Equally, the layout is very important. So I've seen an influx of people using tables and boxes and sometimes graphs on their CV. And this can be for like skills and things. So not something that would need to go on a graph necessarily, but it'd be like, skill set, and then it'd have like out of 100 where they place themselves. And don't get me wrong, it's a great visual.
Okay.
However, the minute that goes into an ATS, it gets jumbled. It doesn't read it. It cannot read it.
Yeah.
So you kind of just you've immediately thrown yourself out the pile. So that's an error that I see. Like we said, the proofreading. Yep. And then also the personal statement. So your personal statement at the top of the CV should not be War and Peace. It should be 6 lines tops. And the content of that should be what you've done and the value that you're going to add to the company that you want to join. That's what that should tell the reader.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a mini cover letter, which is often what people use that space for.
Yeah.
So a tip there, I suppose, is really thinking about and bullet pointing what do you want to do and what value do you want to add, and just write that into a few lines. You don't need to build on it because that'll be in your CV. All the information will be in your CV. So that's another one. And also consider putting like a headline on your CV. So a little bit like you've got on LinkedIn, where you've got your name and then you've got like a headline. That's a really good way of getting some keywords in. So, for example, on my CV, I've got my name, my contact details, a line break, and then I've got a headline, which is like recruiter HR consultant. It just says what I do.
Yeah.
Just says what I do. So that's a tip as well, because again, it helps with the ATS. And as soon as a recruiter opens up that CV and sees that CV, they know what you're almost like identifying as. Like you're saying, this is what I'm bringing, these skills. I think, and then not having, it's a bit controversial this, but I think it's a hill I will die on. Don't go over 2 pages on your CV. Yeah. And I know that's really, really controversial, and especially if you go to LinkedIn and it's a big discussion, but I just feel like if you can't get it into 2 pages, you've probably not thought about it enough. You've probably not really honed in on what it is you're trying to say.
Yeah.
And I know there's the temptation to not, you don't want to leave anything out. I do completely understand that, but it won't add any value. And sometimes ATSs stop reading after 2 pages. So it's a waste of time. Yeah.
There's a skill in itself in being able to be succinct with what you're writing and what you're saying. I think there's a supposedly a quote from Einstein. I don't know if it's a real Einstein quote, but it says something like, if you want me to explain something, I can't remember it now. If you want me to explain something in depth, no, in fact, I can't remember the quote. I'm trying to paraphrase it. It's like basically around, I can talk. If you want me to talk for an hour, I don't need any preparation. But if you want me to talk for a minute, then I'll need a day's preparation, or something like that.
Yeah. No, I get the sentiment. Yeah. Exactly. And I think that's it. I think it's like looking at the position that you want to go for, looking at your end goal and thinking, right, what are the most valuable things that I have achieved, not done, achieved. That's very key. That's going to paint a solid picture for the company, for the recruiter.
Yeah.
You know, and it is hard to do. It really is. That's why, you know, a general tip is to don't go over 10 years of experience. Like 10 years of work history is fine, unless obviously, you know, unless you've been at a company for 10 years, then putting a previous position on there wouldn't hurt. But, you know, if you've done 2-year stints or 3-year stints, which is like the average, you don't need to go over 10 years generally.
Yeah, that's a good tip. It's not what you've done, it's what you've achieved.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah.